Let's travel back in time. We're going to a tiny, remote mission station in Natal, South Africa. The date is January 22nd, 1879. And this little outpost, Rorke's Drift, is about to become the stage for one of the most unbelievable sieges in all of military history. A fight that would become a symbol of incredible heroism, but also a tool of imperial politics.
So, imagine you're there, and on the horizon, a force starts to appear. And this isn't just some small raiding party. No, this is a disciplined army of about 4,000 Zulu warriors, fresh from a victory just hours earlier. And they are coming fast.
And what's standing in their way? Get this, a tiny little garrison. Just over 150 British and colonial troops, and many of them aren't even frontline soldiers. They're sick or wounded men, lying in the station's small hospital. The odds? They aren't just long, they're basically impossible.
Now, to really understand the sheer desperation at Rorke's Drift, you first have to know about the absolute catastrophe that happened just a few hours before. See, this last stand didn't happen in a vacuum. It was the direct, bloody result of a shocking British defeat that took place just a few miles down the road.
Okay, so look at this timeline. The crucial moment is the morning of January 22nd. At a place called Isandlwana, a major British force was almost completely wiped out, utterly destroyed. And the news of that disaster meant that the tiny garrison back at the Rorke's Drift supply depot was now totally cut off, completely alone, and directly in the path of a victorious Zulu army.
So, just after noon, two guys, survivors from Isandlwana, come staggering into the post, completely out of breath. The news they bring is terrifying. The main British column is gone, and a Zulu force is heading their way, right now. For the officers in command, Lieutenants John Chard and Gonville Bromhead, this was it, the point of no return.
The question they faced was brutal and simple. Do you run for it, try to make it to the nearest garrison, which is a grueling 10 miles away, or do you stay and fight against these impossible odds? Their choice was literally going to be the difference between life and death for every single man there.
And what's really interesting here is the argument made by a man named James Dalton. He basically pointed out that trying to run with dozens of wounded men would be suicide. They'd be slow, completely exposed in the open, and the fast-moving Zulu warriors would just run them down. His logic was pretty clear. Their only chance, no matter how slim, was to dig in, fortify the station, and make a stand.
So, the decision was made: defend. And with that, a frantic race against time kicks off. They used the mission's storehouse and hospital as the cornerstones of their defense, and the men worked like mad to turn this peaceful little outpost into a makeshift fortress. Every single second counted.
And this just shows you how resourceful they were. I mean, they used anything and everything they could get their hands on. They were building walls out of 200-pound bags of cornmeal, these heavy wooden biscuit boxes, even crates of meat. They overturned wagons. They even started knocking loopholes, through the hospital's outer walls so they could fire out. It was an incredible feat of improvisation.
Then, at about 4:20 in the afternoon, the moment they were all dreading arrived. The first of the Zulu warriors appeared over a nearby hill. The battle for Rorke's Drift was about to start.
So let's break down the matchup, right? The tale of the tape. The British had the Martini Henry rifle, a very powerful single-shot weapon that gave them a huge technological advantage. The Zulus, on the other hand, relied on sheer, overwhelming numbers, their legendary bravery, and their traditional weapons, a cowhide shield for protection and the deadly short spear, known as the assegai.
Initially, Lieutenant Chard had about 400 men to defend the post. This was his and Bromhead's men, plus several hundred soldiers from the Natal native contingent who were armed mostly with spears.
But then, disaster struck before a single shot was even fired at the main line. As soon as they saw the sheer size of the Zulu army cresting the hill, the Natal native contingent and their commander, they just fled. In an instant, the garrison's strength was cut in half, leaving just about 155 men to face the thousands of warriors now swarming towards them.
For the next several hours, the Zulus launched one assault after another. It was relentless, brutal, often hand-to-hand fighting. And the attacks eventually started to focus on the weakest point in the whole perimeter, the hospital, which was jam-packed with wounded soldiers. The Zulus managed to set fire to the hospital's thatched roof, and suddenly, the building was a raging inferno. The men inside were trapped, choking on smoke, all while fighting off Zulus trying to break through the doors and windows. It was a complete death trap.
But what happened next, it's just incredible. While one soldier, Private Alfred Hook, held off the Zulus at a doorway, another, Private John Williams, took his bayonet and started smashing a hole through the mud brick interior wall into the next room. He dragged patients through, then did it again in the next room, and the next, all while the roof was literally burning and collapsing over their heads. In the end, they actually managed to save 9 of the 11 patients from that burning building.
The attacks kept coming all through the night, but finally, around 2 in the morning, they started to die down. As the sun came up, the absolutely exhausted defenders peered over their barricades. The Zulu army was gone. They had withdrawn, leaving behind a scene of just utter carnage. They had survived.
And the numbers, they're just staggering. The garrison lost 17 men killed and 15 wounded. The Zulus, on the other hand, left 351 bodies behind that were counted, with estimates of their total dead and wounded running much, much higher. That disciplined rifle fire had been absolutely devastating.
For their incredible bravery, the defenders were showered with honors. An unprecedented 11 Victoria Crosses, which is the British Empire's highest award for valor, were handed out to the men of Rorke's Drift. That's the most ever awarded for a single action by one regiment.
But this is where the story gets really complicated. Some people, like the later Commander-in-Chief Sir Garnet Wolseley, were extremely cynical about the whole thing. He basically said that these awards were just a propaganda move by the government to distract the public from the humiliating defeat at Isandlwana. His view was, it's monstrous making heroes of men who fought like rats for their lives.
But then you have others, like the historian Victor Davis Hanson, who argue that the politics don't change the facts on the ground. The raw military achievement of surviving against 40-to-1 odds while killing 20 attackers for every one of your own men lost, that's almost unheard of in the entire history of warfare.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? Was the defense of Rorke's Drift a pure, shining example of heroism, or was it a convenient story blown out of proportion to prop up a struggling imperial war? Or, like so many things in history, was it a messy, complicated, and brutal mix of both?